good evening or morning whenever you listen to this podcast, and welcome to the Chronic Noob. I am Naomi, I'm your host. Tonight, we will be talking about framing your mindset for success. What's that going to take? Because whether you like it or not, you are being framed right now. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, but you are being framed for success or failure. Tonight, we're going to get into who exactly is framing you and what you can do to change the framework that may already be done or may be happening at the moment. Now, I do want to make sure that you are comfy and cozy as you're listening because I'm comfy, so you should get comfy too because listening to stuff while you're comfy is fun. Well, also it's fun to do stuff while you're listening to stuff, so whatever you prefer, as long as, you're ready to hear me out, I'm good to go. So joining me tonight will be author and businessman Jason Todd. He is my colleague. He and I and another colleague of ours, Paul Edwards, we are all on faculty in the Thinker Growth community, a community where entrepreneurs can come together and learn how to use their voice and share the message that they want to share. We believe that if you've got a message you want to share with the world, you should be good at sharing it. And in the Thinker Growth community, we have the tools you need to learn how to use your voice and share your message loud and proud. So Jason will be joining me, and I want to make sure that if you're coming here and you're not having the best day, even if you are having a good day, there's an antidote that works in a lot of ways. It's the best medicine, they say, and that's laughter. Jason is going to help me deliver that. So without further ado, here is Jason. Thank you so much for being willing to bring in the best medicine, which is laughter. Yeah, just go for it whenever you're ready. Just Thank you. I feel and all better. Thank you. Thank you for.
All right.
I hope you do too. You who are listening or watching. I hope you got your daily dose of medicine and that you're feeling all better.
It's the first time I've ever started a podcast with laughter. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just so damn funny. No, but I that was a yeah. I hope people are thoroughly entertained. If not, then I hope you feel really good about yourself that you're not as awkward as I am. You're welcome. So now let's get into it. Framework. You are being framed. Who is framing you? Now, when we were talking about this earlier, in one of our meetings, Jason, you said something that was very pointed. That, I mean, we're all on different paths, right? And you mentioned something that I felt needed to be addressed in this, that needed to be hit on. And that was, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think I'd like it to be self-explanatory, but it is not.
Right.
When I broke it down originally, this idea of you are exactly where you're supposed to be consisted of three parts: what was, what is, and what will be. Now, all of those things are together now. Everything that was has brought you to now. And you have something to do now. some action to take, something to understand in the now, which will create what will be.
Mm-hmm.
So dwelling on what was and thinking about all the ways that could have been different is a losing proposition.
Right.
Don't expend your energy there. Likewise, don't worry about the future because the future is created by now. Instead,
Right.
hold all three parts. Honor what was, do something about it now to create your future. You are exactly where you're supposed to be because you are here and you
Right.
have something to learn and something to do with now.
Thank you for that. I think of when I think about being framed and framework, the picture, the graphic that I used for this episode was a chalk outline of a person. And I love you can't do anything about the past. You can frame yourself for the future. You can set yourself up. Now we're being framed. Whether we like it or not, we're being framed. Whether that's passively letting our surroundings frame us, or whether that's assertively choosing who we allow to influence us, we are being framed. And how I imagine this chalk outline, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And maybe your circumstances have framed you, maybe past traumas have framed you where you're at right now. You're laying on the ground, you're in position, and you have this chalk outline, right? Um, and how I kind of see it is you can pick up the chalk and reposition yourself into a go get it position. You know, you can pick up the chalk, erase the lines you don't like, and reframe it. You can reframe it. You're there, but you can reframe it. I know it's an interesting visual, but that's the visual that I really wanted to set on. You'll hear some paper because I have all my notes on paper, so forgive me because I'm cheating. Um,
I want to touch on that idea of your
yep,
chalk outline because when you created that
go for it.
chalk outline, I thought it was profound
Mhm.
because the chalk is usually used as some way of outlining death. This was the last
Mm.
known position of that individual. They are now dead. And your point that you just made, where the chalk can be moved and you hold the chalk until you're dead. So in
Right.
the now, you might be laying in a certain position, fixated there,
Mhm.
but you hold the chalk, change the position.
Right, you can change it. Um, I have something I really like. Oh no, I didn't Google this. I know it's unconventional for a podcast, but I really need the wording on this. Something that I really love, if you're familiar with, um if you're familiar with addiction and the recovery steps, right? Because addiction can frame people, right? Whether it's alcoholism, substance addiction, whatever it is, it kind of frames you, and it's hard to redraw that. And this idea of um, you can change it, you can change the chalk. The Serenity Prayer that they recite in a lot of addiction recovery programs. It is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are things we can't change. There, like Jason mentioned before, we can't change our past. We can't change where we have been. We cannot change um we can change where we're going, but right now, we can't change where we are at in this very moment. We can't. We can change where we're going. We can change the trajectory. We can change the framework for our future, for our success, but we cannot change. There's certain things we can't change. So I really want to get into the framework for setting up how to redraw and how to change the chalk outline and how to make it so you're framing yourself. You're drawing a really pretty frame. You're framing yourself in a really cool position, ready to just get going, um, and just get that mindset for success. Now, as I mentioned with this chalk drawing, you can erase part of it. This is very crucial. I want you to get back to this imagery of erasing part of it, because when it comes to success, there are certain things you will need to let go. There are certain things you will need to erase and just wash away and let it flow down the river. That could be relationships. It could be habits. It could be, well, here's one for me. This is something that last week I decided that I had been, when I was stressed, I would sit and pull up a game or something on my phone, whether it was Tetris or Clash of Clans, or, oh gosh, I forget what else I had on there. But I would just play games, time waster things that if I just was stressed, it was a de-stress, if you will. And I realized that I could be spending that time doing something productive. I could be investing that time into relationships and edifying relationships with people who brought joy and light to my life. I made a conscious decision to erase that part of the chalk drawing. I deleted all of those apps on my phone, and I started to invest in relationships. As I did so, an influx of growth came my way in a lot of different forms, but it was strengthening growth. It was strengthening growth that helped set me up for where I want to be, because I want to be stronger, right? If we're wanting to get stronger, back to this idea of, are we being framed, or are we, what was the wording that I used? Are you getting framed, or are you framing yourself? I don't remember the wording that I used. I have a wording in my promotion for this podcast, this episode, this chapter, that
You said you are being framed.
it was the next line. It was like, are you getting framed, or are you framing yourself, or something along those lines. And it was like just this idea of, is it happening to you, or are you deliberately making a frame for yourself? We were talking about something earlier today as well, something that about examples and following examples. How do the examples around us frame us? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I recall the conversation that we were having, talking about being framed even from birth. And
Right.
by the way, your content you were talking about is who is framing you, which is relevant to where we're at now.
Right.
When we're young, the frame that we see is what is modeled to us, and we accept that, which, if people tell us we're smart, and they've actually done studies on this, if they've taken two different groups of people, children in fact, and they give them both the same test, but before the test they said, by the way, you group, you children, they split them in half. They said, you children are smarter than everybody else, but don't tell anybody. And then they said, talked to the other one and said, hey, you know what, you guys are great, but you're kind of at the bottom of the class. Took the test, and they found the children who thought that they were smarter outperformed the other students. Wow. And that, if you think about that frame, whatever frame was provided to us, whatever frame was modeled for us, we accept it. Whatever frame is told to us, we accept it from a very young age. And and then we have an opportunity at some point in time to assess, in light of other things that we see and hear, in light of our experiences, to determine, the frame that I was given, is that really who I am? Do I really have to lay here on this sidewalk just because you said so? Or do I want to change it and then get about the business of changing it, which is extremely difficult. But there is a progression of accepting blindly as a child the frames and experiences we see, to then coming to a point where we change that. And then what do we do with it? And that's a lifelong journey.
Yes. And I wrote down after you mentioned about the example and how the examples kind of frame us and how we lean on that. I wrote down get uncomfortable and let go of examples. I also wrote down there are two ways to learn. One is by example, and two is survival. There's not really like, and I mean, even a thirst for knowledge to survive and to grow on that thirst for knowledge, to survive that, to edify that, you're going to need to learn. Which brings me to choosing discomfort. Now, are we passively letting people frame us by their examples or lack of examples or negative things they're saying about us or to us? Or are we exposing ourselves to media that's framing us, negative media, and trying to tune out our conscious? And the reason I say that is the only way, the only way to find authentic change, to frame ourselves for a successful future. When it comes to success, there's a point where we have to stop relying on examples and start decide where we want to be. Know we are exactly where we need to be. We need to decide what our destiny is, whether that's through prayer, meditation, just planning it out, setting some goals for the future. We need to get there. We can't rely on examples that have been set for us because no one has been where we need to be. Individually, we're each on our own path. We are each going to need to fill a specific purpose. Now, to survive that journey and getting there, it is going to be uncomfortable. You mentioned earlier that just now you were talking about the process of relearning that or letting go of those examples. That's hard stuff. It's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. But if you want to be successful, you're going to have to embrace that discomfort. And a metaphor, I brought up two metaphors. One is an escape room. Some people like to do this for fun. Some people feel easily, I'm one of those people who feels easily trapped. Do not do not put me in an escape room. Unless is there like a panic? Have you ever done an escape room?
I've not, but I've got a friend who very much enjoys them. I don't see
Is it
why.
is there like a button to like press to say, "Hey, I
I
give
don't
up.
know.
Come
I don't know
rescue
if there's a
me,
button
please."
or if it's a safe word. My guess is there's a safe word to
Right.
scream out when something comes rushing for you. I
Pineapple!
don't know.
Uh, but the idea of escape room, right, is you go in and you have to find clues. You have to search and find and seek out clues to help you get out of the room. You have to find the way out of the room. Now, if you had just gone in there and didn't know there was a way out, or you were comfortable in there and you had all the things you needed, would there be a need to escape? Nah. Um, the idea is you have to learn, you have to find the clues, you have to put things together in order to escape. Um, I bring this up because once again, when you erase that chalk drawing, it's hard stuff and you have to be uncomfortable. What is it going to take for you to choose in to discomfort? I've had my fair share of habits, some bad habits, some addiction. Um, I Within the last couple of years, I've been able to get really, oh gosh, it's gonna make me sound like I'm sitting on a high horse or something. I've been able to get pretty healthy. I've lost over 100 pounds. I've been able to kind of like stop being angry about things and be like, oh, okay, uh, moving on. Like just from different things instead of getting hung up. I still, oh, I mean, we've had conversations where we're having a planning meeting and it turns into me venting about stress. I still get hung up on things. I think we all do. We're human, but I chose into discomfort. I didn't change my lifestyle little by little. I stopped allowing things into my home that I knew were weak points for me. I learned how to nourish my body. I went cold turkey. It wasn't, there wasn't one trickety trick. I prayed. I'm very religious. I prayed a lot for God to help me learn my body and what my body needs and how to nourish it. And I knew my weak points, things that weren't healthy, and I kept them out of the house. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. 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 Yes, it was 100%. Hell yes. It was 100% uncomfortable. I had to learn a lot of new things, but I chose into it. I chose to get rid of things that were holding me back. I chose to get into a headspace and into a physical shape that I could sit on the floor and play with my kids. I could chase them around on the playground. Um, I had to pick myself up from my surroundings and drop myself in the middle of a forest. Now, I kind of think of like if you're taking the path that's already worn down, that's like the path of least resistance, right? Um, if you try to go off that path a little bit and it's uncomfortable, how likely are you to go onto the path that's more comfortable? The one that you know. Pretty damn likely. But if you pick yourself up and drop yourself in the middle of the forest and you have no choice but to go forward and carve your own path, what does that look like? Do you think you're going to go back to those old habits very easily? What are your have what are your thoughts on carving your own path, Jason?
Well, the thing that stands out for me is your message from last week, which is talking about potent promises versus potent proof. It ties directly in with what you're talking about today, which is getting framed. And you are exactly where you are supposed to be, but what are you going to do about it? And in this moment, we have the opportunity to set for ourselves the promise of change or the proof of change. The future, I will do this in the future, or I will do this now. And we do that for ourselves. Everybody sets many people set New Year's intentions and they do not uphold them within days, only to circle back around and claim that in the future I'm going to do this instead of getting about the work right now. That idea of potent promises and potent proof, whether it is internal within us or whether it is external, we're watching potent promises or potent proof from somebody else, it happens in the now. Don't tell me you're going to do something. Get about doing it.
Do it.
Because otherwise all those promises exist in the future. And so if we're going to carve a new path, if we're going to change the chalk lines, what are you going to do about it now? Because the future doesn't exist. It literally does not exist, because as soon as it's the future, it's the now. Tomorrow never comes. We only have today. The clock turns over and it is always now. The future is now. So what are you going to do today? What are you going to do right now to, for yourself, create potent proof and surround yourself with other people who create potent proof of the chalk lines or of the path that you want to follow?
Right. Thank you. This is something I love that you brought that up. Surrounding yourself. I actually had a conversation with someone earlier this week where I had mentioned surrounding yourself with people who see your value and treat you as they value you. This is very, very, very important, because if you're being you are being influenced. Oh, what was that thing you said about influence and why it's important? You had mentioned it in your webinar, and influence of people and getting people's opinions matter, or people's influence matters. Do you remember?
The webinar on storytelling?
It was about how people's opinions need to
It
get.
talks about we talked about the webinar on storytelling. Is the premise is that if you want to change people's action, you have to affect their belief. You have to influence their belief, which influences their action.
Right. You mentioned.
Because we all act out of our belief,
Mhm.
and and then that influences our interaction. And it's our interactions over time which create the stories that we tell ourselves, which form our beliefs, out of which we act, out of which we interact, out of which we form stories, out of which we believe something, out of which we act, out of which we interact, out of which we reinforce stories. And this idea that all of our actions come from some story that we're telling ourselves, some story that we believe about ourselves, which gets back to the topic for tonight of, if the story that I believe is that I'm drawn in these chalk lines because that's what somebody else said, it's really all exists in the story. The past exists in a story. It is the story that we took from the past, which is creating the now. And then we can retell ourselves that story by the interjection of new information or choice that influences our future. And so at any point in time, we get the opportunity to change our storyline.
Yes. I love that. Like, I love that it's that story that we're telling ourselves, that goes into our framework fundamentally. The people around us, they influence us. So we need to change our mindset, we need to change our habits, we need to find a way of survival. But part of that, a huge part of that, like you mentioned, is the people you surround yourself with, the people who are around you, who are sharing their opinions with you, sharing their mindset with you, sharing their story with you. It's all influencing you, which is why it is vital. If you are surrounding yourself with people that don't value you, do you think they're going to treat you as though they value you? If they don't treat you as though they value you, do you think for a second the energy they are putting out to you in their interactions with you is going to help frame your successful future? With as much conviction as I can muster, I say, fuck no. It is not. And it's not even about, you shouldn't be looking at relationships based off of what you can get out of them. No, no, no. You shouldn't be looking for, well, that person benefits me. Well, that person. No, 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 no. It's a matter of, you have a divine purpose. You have a divine mission that you need to fulfill. Are the people that you are surrounding yourself with, are the people that you are allowing to influence you, are they supporting you in that? Are they edifying you in your mission to move forward, to be successful in sharing your message, in changing the world, in doing whatever it is that you feel you need to do in order to help make the world a better place? We're all doing our part, right? And if you're not wanting to make the world a better place, then like hop off this podcast, because this isn't for you. I'm here to help people reflect and see how they can better themselves and help better, I don't know, the world around them. So how are the people around you framing you? How do you feel? Pay attention to your gut. Pay attention. What is the thing I love, in our previous conversations, you've mentioned something about the 5 people closest to you.
You become like the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally true. And so think about this. You want to be an entrepreneur, but you never hang around entrepreneurs. You're not going to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
You want to be a runner, but you hang around people who game and watch Netflix all the time. You're not going to be a runner. It's very, very difficult to change your patterns of behavior when no one else around you is changing their patterns of behavior or supporting you in your patterns. Go back to the story, belief, action, interaction. You are at any point in time through your actions and interactions reinforcing whatever storyline you have.
Yep.
So if you want to change your story, hey, I'm fat, or I'm fit, healthy, active. You got to go be fit, healthy, and active. That will automatically reject people from your life who are not fit, healthy, and active, because that's not their actions. Because you won't have interactions, and you will also increase. Yeah, that's not a problem. I mean, there's not an issue of they're not good people or you're not a good person. It has nothing to do with anything. But your interactions will automatically create a chasm between the people who do not want to pursue the things you want to pursue, and it will draw you closer to the people who do want to pursue the things you want to pursue. And the world, the structure of the universe is built to support you in what you want to do. That's the odd way to think about it. A lot of people think all fatalistic. That, oh, it's not. No, there's lots of people. There are lots of things. And all you got to do is set your attention on it, and you'll start to see it, and you'll start to find it, and you'll start to create it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you. We do need to sign off here, but I just want to end with, you are being framed for success or failure. The beautiful thing is, no matter what frame you're in right now, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You can pick up the chalk. You can pick up the eraser. You can welcome discomfort. You need to get into an uncomfortable position in order to learn and grow and get stronger. I want you to know that it is important to embrace discomfort. It is important to let go of things and people and habits that are holding you back and are framing you, passively framing you for failure. And wherever you're at right now, whatever your frame is right now, pick up the chalk and reframe if you need to. You got this. Surround yourself with the best and move forward. If you like what you learned tonight, or even if you didn't like what you learned tonight, consider joining us tonight for night networking in the Thinker Growth community. The link is in the description to this video. It is a virtual networking party, if you will. I'll be doing that in about 15 minutes, so feel free to join. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Jason, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Right. Good night, everybody. Oh no, where's my mouse? Found it.